Formula One is currently suffering through a criminal second three-weekend break of the season. The scheduling nightmare has infuriated fans as the intensifying title race has had the wind sucked out of its sails by the dearth of on-track action. What the lack of action has done is build the hype for the US Grand Prix at the Circuit of the Americas next weekend. The race last season saw some insane results with 2 cars disqualified and Logan Sargeant earning his only ever F1 points because of it. With Red Bull bringing a massive upgrade package to the race, it could prove pivotal to the World Championship. But with some massive track changes made for this year's Grand Prix, will the teams be unsettled? Let's check it out. It's feeling like an age since we last saw some on-track action. This 3-week gap between races that has broken up the championship run-in has been a killer. To help me cope, I recently picked up the 1999 F1 Annual, which had a race-by-race summary of the season, which has been an excellent read. Who doesn't love looking at old pictures of F1 cars? Anyway, the United States Grand Prix at the Circuit of the Americas isn't far away now. The obvious focus in the build-up to the race will be Lando Norris and Max Verstappen and their Drivers' Championship battle. Lando Norris still has an almost insurmountable 52-point gap to close to overtake Max Verstappen, but that won't stop him and McLaren from trying. A shockingly good result for Verstappen in Singapore last time out helped to solidify his position, as did Daniel Ricciardo taking the fastest lap point off Lando Norris, something that Zak Brown was furious about. It is at the point now that if Max Verstappen outscores Lando Norris at any race, it'll probably be game over for the title race. In Norris's favour is the fact that there are 3 sprint races remaining this year, offering him some additional opportunities to outscore Verstappen. COTA was one of the few tracks that Red Bull struggled at last season, though Verstappen still won both the sprint race and Sunday's Grand Prix. Part of the problem for the Red Bull driver was a brake-related issue, which allowed Lewis Hamilton to quickly close up to Verstappen over the final stint, though not enough to pass him, and Hamilton was later disqualified for illegal levels of plank wear anyway. Another part of the problem last season was how poor the track surface was, especially on the run-up to Turn 1. For the 2024 Grand Prix, the surface has been relaid to try and alleviate some of the bouncing that the drivers suffered last year, and which played a part in Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc's disqualification. It was mainly to get rid of the bumps, said Austin race promoter Bobby Epstein. Some of that track was 12 years old, so it was time. I know Max gave it a pretty poor review last year, so I hope we hear something positive. I'm certain we're going to hear, "This is like a totally new track, it's fantastic." Specifically, Verstappen said last year that the track was better suited to a rally car than an F1 car, so hopefully it's an improvement on that. The resurfacing should help reduce the bouncing, but it isn't a long-term solution for the circuit. The bouncing is in part caused by a tunnel which goes underneath the circuit at Turn 1, granting access to the paddock for the teams. It's thought that the bumpiness of the track is caused by some subsidence around the tunnel area, which won't be stopped by resurfacing, though it may be a temporary fix for a few years. The other issue in Austin, Texas, is the ground the track is built on. COTA sits atop a substance called high-plasticity clay. In effect, that means that the ground overall is particularly susceptible to growing, shrinking, and undulating in response to seasonal temperature shifts and precipitation. Resurfacing a track is a huge deal in Formula One. Teams have years of data on the track surface at each track, knowing before they arrive how much grip it will offer and how quickly it will degrade tyres. When the track is resurfaced, all of that data basically gets thrown out of the window. Every team will be turning up blind to COTA this year, and with a sprint race to contend with as well, they will only have 1 hour of free practice to work out what they want to do with their setup before points are on offer, which could cause some shuffling of the field for Saturday's sprint race. Of course, this isn't the first time this season that the teams will be driving on a brand new surface. When F1 turned up to the Chinese Grand Prix earlier this year, they were completely caught off guard by a brand new track surface. With the teams having done a lot of pre-event work in the simulator based on information from both Pirelli and the FIA, they were baffled by the track surface when they arrived in Shanghai. The drivers said it looked like the track had been painted, and it eventually emerged that it was actually a liquid bitumen surface treatment that had been applied last year to help reduce the degradation of the old asphalt. Normally, Pirelli would have sent engineers to the circuit well in advance of the Grand Prix to gather data for the teams on the track surface, but they had no one available for the Chinese Grand Prix, and the race organisers failed to inform the FIA the changes had been made. That won't be the case in Austin though, and hopefully the drivers will enjoy the 18,000 tons of asphalt that were used to resurface the track. The changes in Austin don't stop there though, but before I talk about the rest of them, if you're enjoying the video and want to catch some F1 news on a daily basis, make sure to give us a like and subscribe to F1 Reverse to stay up to date with everything happening in the sport. So what else is changing at COTA? Well, a lot actually. A huge talking point at last year's race was track limits and drivers cutting corners or abusing runoff areas. The problem of drivers cutting corners became so prevalent that Haas sought a right of review over what it claimed were multiple breaches by competitors in the race that should have been sanctioned. While the FIA stewards rejected Haas's request, onboard video footage of drivers running off track, especially at Turn 6, prompted complaints from other teams about the lack of action being taken. In the end, while the FIA acknowledged the onboard footage of the track limits problem existed, it said external monitoring of specific corners was not deemed sufficient to provide an accurate judgment on if drivers had been outside the white lines. Track limits have been a problem at a number of tracks in recent years, and the owners of various circuits have finally realized that the best way to solve the problem is to make running off track have consequences. If there is an area for the drivers to use safely, they will use it. If you put a gravel trap or a nice grassy verge there, they'll do everything possible to avoid it, something that fans have been saying for years. COTA is the most recent circuit to introduce some punishment for drivers taking a liberty with track limits. At several areas of the track, the asphalt verges have been narrowed by 1.5 meters and replaced with turf, which should stop the drivers being tempted to run fully across them. These are on the inside of Turn 6, which was the corner that caused Haas to kick off last year, and 13, 14 and 15. The organisers have given the FIA extra aid to combat the problem of track limits as well, by adding cameras in strategic places that should help better monitor any cars that are deemed to run off the track. A change has also been made at the exit of Turn 11, the tight left-hander onto the back straight. This had previously been an asphalt runoff area with turtle bumps on the exit, but has now been fitted with a resin-bound gravel-filled insert. The fake gravel is designed to slow the cars sufficiently to act as a deterrent to drivers, while also avoiding the problem of gravel being dragged onto the track and requiring cleaning. COTA is a circuit that hosts a number of different series, including MotoGP, which has very different requirements for runoff areas. Bobby Epstein said, "There are some areas where it's hard because if you run MotoGP and F1 on the same track, one wants gravel in an area where another one wouldn't. You can't have both, and you can't cut into the track and put in gravel, then flip it back and hope it stays watertight when you have clay underneath it, so there's some back and forth challenges to it." Hopefully the changes made will solve the bouncing problems faced last year as well as the track limits issues, allowing us to focus on the on-track action. Are you excited to see some racing again next weekend? And what have you been doing to satiate your need for Formula 1 over this extended break? Let me know in the comments down below, and if you want to support us in bringing you daily F1 news, the best thing you can do is head to f1reverse.com and check out our merch store. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you next time.